Welcome back to my channel, Famous and Fabulous. The instant 50 Cent entered that courtroom, Diddy's whole attitude broken. His jaw dropped, his eyes grew wild, his hands were under the table, locked, shuddered. The calm, the most untouchable music mogul we've ever seen, decades. By the trial's third day, witnesses said Diddy was totally disintegrating, particularly after 50 Cent stunned everyone by openly supporting Cassie. What followed left the courtroom inarticulate and subject to change the whole course of the case. For more than 30 years, Shah Diddy Combs constructed an empire based solely on power. Picture was crucial. He was the king of the red carpet, charmingly managed harsh interviews as an expert, and endured scandals without ever breaking. He was the definition of composure under duress. Who could you forget the interview from 2017? The reporter questioned him directly about college payments to former workers. Didn't you wince? With a smile, he modified his suit and sidestepped the query with ease. Or the unsuccessful restaurant business in 2012. He attended the closing celebration, as though it were all a part of a larger business decision. Diddy was like that. Untouchable, sleek, and cool. However, that creating an image wasn't simple, as stated by. According to people close to him, Diddy used a 12-person team that is only concerned with managing his public image. Each and every expression, every word, every response was practiced. According to a former assistant, he would spend hours rehearsing interviews in front of a mirror. He even maintained a media coach retainer to conduct simulated crisis situations, only to see how well he could maintain his awesome. However, underneath the high-end colors, Diddy was different in real life. The former workers discussed a short fuse, in whispers, as well as backstage meltdowns. There were one ex-boy worker and two dodies, informed me that the smooth operator on television and the individual who would toss a phone across the space when things didn't work out for him. These tales were never reported in the media because no influential person dared to verify them up to this point. The fissures started to appear a few days prior to the trial. He was seen by paparazzi yelling at a fan outside the office of his attorney. Next, there was a heated news conference prior to the trial, where he held onto the podium so tightly that white knuckles appeared. Little things, yet terrible, given the millions he'd spent to keep his reputation intact. Celebrity, according to crisis expert Tanya Rodriguez, best. These celebrities create identities, like the walls of a fortress. However, when pressure mounts, even the most robust barriers start to disintegrate. Additionally, as they fall quickly. That's precisely what took place. On the third day, several courtrooms, according to witnesses, Diddy was clearly disturbed when specific evidence was displayed. His leg bounced so forcefully that the defense table shook. Had disrupted his own lawyer 3. His voice became louder over time until the judge was forced to intervene. But the real moments thereafter, the breaking point was reached. The courthouse doors opened, and the Diddy didn't anticipate seeing 50 people. Cent, his enduring adversary, his greatest obstinate critic, the individual who had spent years making disparaging remarks about him in interviews, radio programs, particularly on social media. Diddy was accused of concealing the truth regarding Biggie's killing, top persistently making fun of his sexuality. This wasn't your typical rap feud. It was profoundly individual. Thus, when 50 Cent came into the wearing a dapper black suit and everything, even his trademark shades ceased. Janelle Martin, a court reporter, stated that the room became so quiet that you could hear the vibration of phones. Diddy stopped, turned and stared in the middle of a statement. Observers noticed his face change from bewilderment to shock to something that appeared to be fear. As of the now, 50 had merely been teasing from a distance, publishing the notorious surveillance clip from 2016, in which Diddy is accused of attacked Cassie. The video featured more than 12 million views, then a surge of more harmful Instagram posts that teased disclosures. Nobody was aware of that. 50 had been operating covertly behind the scenes involving Cassie's attorneys. The source verified that he had contacted only a few days after the case was brought, providing resources and assistance. And now, he wasn't merely observing the trial, but changing the pace. While during the lunch break, 50 people went outdoors to talk to the media. His words turned, the courtroom inverted. "I'm placing funding for ensuring survivors receive," he declared, heard, affirming that he was personally paying for more legal assistance to Cassie via his Gun ID Foundation. "It's not about me or Diddy's past. This has to do with right and incorrect." Within, the response was explosive. Diddy banged his fist against the knocking down a glass of defense table water. Security drew nearer. His attorney attempted to soothe him, but it was obvious. He was disintegrating, and the moment, nothing could have been worse. The same as at the height of tensions, the prosecution stood up and uttered 6 words that transformed everything. "Respected one, we would want to show item 47B of the evidence." Diddy's group appeared in disbelief. They hadn't observed anything found with the 47B label, though the courtroom was lively as both sides were summoned to the bench. Behind them, Diddy cracked his knuckles while sitting by himself. Repeatedly, he fixed his gaze on 50 Cent, who remained in his chair. Upon the lawyer's return, Diddy's, the main attorney, appeared dejected. What came next? Let's just say no then. One was prepared for that in the courtroom. The courtroom continued to stand motionless in a deep, dumbfounded quiet after Diddy's violent eruption. The gavel of the judge had reverberated around the space like a gunshot, and the ensuing tension was oppressive. Now, court officials were firmly positioned close to the table of defense, keeping a careful eye on Diddy, prepared to step in once more at the smallest provocation. Diddy, panting, he settled into his chair carefully. However, the harm was already done. In the last 30 years, Sean Diddy Combs created an untouchable image, self-assurance, and calm charm. He had gracefully strolled the red carpet, managed difficult interviews with ease, and continued to have a strong presence in entertainment, fashion, and music. However, within minutes, that picture collapsed in front of a courtroom, full with reporters, attorneys, observers, famous people, and maybe the majority of slanderously his peers. The jury gazed at, his eyes were wide and unsure, and some evidently troubled by what they just observed, continuing to sit at that had flinched at Diddy's witness stand insult, but hadn't turned away. She continued to look straight ahead, even while the amount of adrenaline in the space. The judge is attempting to restore order, spoke sternly to the court, making it apparent that any additional, there would be no tolerance for disturbances. With obvious annoyance, she requested a quick 15-minute break to let the courtroom to start over. However, the emotional and a change in mindset was unchangeable, as Diddy was led away of the room by his court and legal team officers. His unsteady gait, his eyes flashing tensely as whispers followed in his wake. The man who was formerly known commanding rooms now appeared to be tiny, surrounded, and unmanageable. Outside the media frenzy, the courtroom blew up. Reporters rushed to submit breaking news as the meltdown is reported, dispersed via all major outlets. Diddy becomes unmanageable in court, read the headlines. Courtroom drawings that document his tirade, which is already going around, became viral online in a matter of minutes. An audio that was leaked by an unidentified source from the courtroom to a number of media outlets, as well as Diddy's eerie sound yelling at Cassie, "That's all lies," played during television shows and social media circuits across the country. In an hour, Diddy breakdown hashtags, and the hashtag #AngJustice for Cassie was trending on platforms. The general populace was observing the live breakdown of a heritage once believed to be unbreakable. In the meanwhile, 50 Cent stayed in the gallery as a stone statue, arms folded, sunglasses covering any discernible response. To those who are observing, close proximity, there might have been the faintest trace of a grin. He had expected this. For several years he had made public insults to Diddy, but now, without saying anything, he had struck with the most devastating force, his presence. In this courtroom now, he sat as a witness and a representation of Diddy's reckoning. Sources near. The evidence subsequently showed that 50 had been aware of regarding the days of surveillance footage prior to its disclosure, and had issued a warning Cassie's legal counsel will be prepared for Diddy's probable emotional collapse. This wasn't merely an accident, it was a calculated checkmate. Cassie was taken discreetly to a separate room for recuperation. From the intensely emotional session, her legal staff reorganized swiftly. She had held her despite being shaken. Calmness in the face of an unstable event. Additionally, a number of legal analysts would probably be employed in her favor with the jurors. She appeared to be. One analyst said it was steady and credible, although he appeared erratic and hostile. It's a strong contrast. However, the ramifications went well beyond the courtroom. Hollywood, once cautiously mute about Diddy's alleged actions, appeared to be holding its breath at this point. Observing the events of his fall in real time, his team's phone calls were being disregarded. Famous people that once gave praise, he was now removing himself from interviews, both in public and in private. Silently, sponsorships were withdrawn. An occasion, the invitations vanished. The brand partnerships fell apart. The empire he'd so painstakingly constructed appeal, influence, and terror were crumbling bricks under the weight of indisputable evidence and unbridled anger. What felt like a case of defamation at one point with, now there was some seriousness to some tabloid drama, of a reckoning with culture. The mask was away. The persona was completely broken. Fix. Additionally, every time the court meets, every shout, every damning fragment of evidence, Diddy was not being seen by the globe as a business magnate, but as a man surrounded by he could no longer deny the fact. Safety stayed in the vicinity of the defensive table, Diddy in the center of their gaze. The main lawyer stood once more, trying to save as much as he could by asking for a brief break. However, Judge Harmon made no hesitation. "Sit down, advice. We'll keep going," she said. Strong, her tone bearing the burden of a courtroom now completely. Conscious that the defendant was losing their mind, the onlookers were taken aback. Diddy, Sean Combs, and the polished tycoon, the king of cool, who had molded his legacy by using authority and charm, was now shown as a male and disintegrating in real time. One of the jurors was observed writing in the second row, enragedly, in her journal immediately following the eruption, a warning indication for the defense. But Cassie didn't flinch. She straightened herself and took a sip of water, and continued testifying as though nothing had occurred. Her poise was strike, and her legal counsel would subsequently disclose that it sprang from a developing sense of empowerment. One based on knowledge, she now had supporters outside of the popular but influential people like 50 Cent. There in the room, sitting, the way people responded to Diddy's threat was clear, the kind of calm, knowing nod you give when a strategy is playing out precisely as intended. It was a cinematic moment, for the man who had dominated the music business. Now, it was through intimidation, loosing his hold, and all of the change was felt in the courtroom. That change carried over into the defense's activities just after court adjourned. Once a clean approach that presents Diddy as a sophisticated, calm businessman unable to violence was in ruins now. There the whole story had fallen apart with one eruption, a legal insider informed me. The defense gathered in a panicked war room that evening, discarding their initial rewriting their courtroom's playbook posture from the beginning. They were now without option but to change course. The peace has vanished. The image of a gentleman is replaced with a frantic tree to portray Diddy as aim-perfect, passionate, and misunderstood man. Not abusive, perhaps. It was a total reversal. The very next. The defense submitted a motion in the morning for mistrial, claiming that the existence of 50 Cent in court was a deliberate action of provocation intended to influence the jury. 50 social media screenshots were provided, posters claiming a concerted effort to discriminate against their client in the courtroom. Judge Harmon, however, was unmoved. She rejected the motion in a timely manner, without ritual, composing, Mr. Comum's behavior is entirely his own fault. The departure of the judge merely made the desperate defense. In the meantime, Cassie's group took the initiative. Her lawyer submitted a proposal to permit 3 fresh witnesses to provide testimony. Observers who, having earlier declined to come forward, but felt more confident now after Diddy's collapse. 1 former security guard was among them, 2 assistants, and a guard with direct awareness of Diddy's purported behavior. They weren't aloof watchers. They contained confidential information, and their choice to speak now highlighted the expanding belief that Diddy's ability to silence had finally broken. Additionally, 50 Cent wasn't retreating. Indeed, he stepped up his attack. Given that in the courtroom, he had posted 7 regarding the trial. Every message struck more difficult than the last one. One post that went viral displayed Diddy in "caught on a split screen." Alongside the damning security video, actions speak louder than words, as the caption attorneys. Just that post garnered over 3, in less than 6 hours, 1 million likes. Next, the shocking news that the 50s newseries of documentaries, music industry secrets, an initiative that many insiders think is specifically targeted toward Diddy and that he had unbridled authority for decades. However, the most notable, Cassie herself, underwent a metamorphosis. When back on the witness stand, the following day, courtroom watchers observed how she had changed a lot. Her stance was stronger, her posture straighter. She doesn't longer appear to be narrating a trauma. She appeared to be someone taking back her authority. Later, her lawyer, "My client feels seen," he added. Each day she provides testimony. She's coming into her own. The sound of the voice was echoing past the courtroom. Legal analysts started coming on TV and stating his credibility had been damaged by his acts. According to Sarah Matthews, a juror consultant, simply put, jurors remember what they first-hand knowledge. Observing a defendant erupts in such a manner, yelling, accusing, losing command. It remains with, they are far longer than any polished testimony. Another specialist pointed out how the jurors quietly reclined in their chairs. During the outburst, as if he were backing away from Diddy. These weren't legal abstracts. Consequences. These were times when could influence a decision. The consequences were financial as well. In the hours following the court footage that was released and shared in Diddy's Revolt Media, the corporation fell 14%. 3 well-known liquor companies stopped promotional offers. His agency for talent verified that they were looking over his portrayal. In silence, executives' entertainment companies were severing their connections. Insiders in the industry currently estimate that Diddy might lose as much as $200 million in upcoming business. Whatever the verdict of the trial, he had spent decades constructing a persona, assembling his tale, and directing his story. However, currently with one video that went viral and one emotional explosion, that picture was like a house of cards, falling apart. The courtroom wasn't only a location for fairness, it was now the venue where publicly, Diddy's empire was collapsing. The power dynamics have completely flipped. Diddy, the once dreaded despot of the music sector, currently sitting, alone at the table of defense, but Cassie, once disregarded and mute, became more powerful by the day. Additionally, 50 Cent is still, the message was clear, stoke the fire. There was more than one case at this point. It involved decades of terror, silence, and a misuse of authority in the song, The World. The time had come for the reckoning, and no matter how well known or feared, one was out of its grasp.